Hey friends, welcome to the Peacock Homestead. We are doing the pantry challenge that Jessica's hosting over at Three Rivers Homestead, and we're going to get right into week 5 of the challenge, and I'm going to show you what I cooked this week. Today I'm going to be making some sourdough brownies. I got this recipe from Lisa over at the farmhouse on Boone, and she has a wonderful sourdough book out, and I'm trying the recipe in there. It's a fudge walnut brownie recipe, but I am not putting any nuts in here. I melted some chocolate chips that I needed to use up, some white and milk chocolate chips, and I had some butter in there and a little bit of vanilla. And then I'm gonna take some of the dry ingredients and we're gonna mix that all up and preheat our oven. For the dry ingredients, I just have some flour, cacao powder, I have a couple eggs, and I also have a little bit of salt and some of my sourdough starter. I'm just gonna mix that in slowly so it doesn't cook my egg. And then we're gonna preheat our oven. I believe she has it for 350. So I'm gonna preheat that to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And I actually baked this for a little bit longer because of my pan was thicker. And it was calling for 40 minutes and I cooked mine for about 50. So this recipe called for butter. I'm thinking you could probably use coconut oil or probably some of the beef tallow that I rendered, because there's so much sugar and chocolate goodness going in this, you wouldn't even taste that. So if you didn't have any butter, you could substitute with coconut oil or a beef tallow, and probably some palm fruit shortening as well. But that looks pretty good. This is going to be super ooey gooey. I'm so excited for these. I am going to grease my pan with the beef towel, and I think it would be perfect so it doesn't stick to this. But this is the beef towel that I rendered in a few videos ago. I could probably do making like one more batch to last us up until next year, but we'll see all the things that I make with it. So I'm going to just pour this in there, and then we'll pop it in our preheated oven for about 40 minutes because my pan is a little bit thicker than those little tin ones, so it takes longer to cook. I've had some experience with undercooking things with this pan, and you get used to it. Anytime when you get a new pan, you just have to practice with it a little, and that always helps. And as you can see in the background, I just got done canning some whole milk, and that's going to be used for cooking in some of my coffee creamer, and that'll last quite a while on your shelf. It doesn't last very long in my house because I use it up right away, but I did Google it and it said that properly canned milk could be shelf stable for a year up to 5 years. I've been canning for quite a while, over a decade now, so I've had some experience, and I like to pass it on. So the person that I did learn from on YouTube was Homestead Heart. She does a lot of amazing canning, so if you want to check it out, you can head over to her channel. This night I wanted to make something quick and easy. I had this pizza dough in the freezer. I had some extra pepperoni, and then I wanted to use some of these green olives up, and I've also had some banana peppers. And then for the sauce, I'm going to be using this can of pasta sauce that's just been hanging out in my fridge for a while. I'm going to grease the pan with my beef tallow that I had rendered, and then I shredded up some mozzarella. And this fall I had canned some pickled beets. I got the beets from the farmer's market, and I used the juice from the leftover pickled beets, and I made these really beautiful pickled eggs. So I'm going to let these marinate in the fridge, and they are going to be snacks for our lunches. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. So that's going to be fun. And I'm gonna just kind of spread the pasta sauce around, and we're gonna make this pizza. And I did preheat my oven to 425, and I usually bake it for around 14 minutes. I always check the bottom at 14 minutes, so it's usually done between 14 to 16 minutes. So I would just double check that, because sometimes your crusts are a little bit thicker, but usually turns out really good as long as you have it preheated. It makes a nice crust on it. This dough recipe is going to be on my blog, thepeacockhomestead.com. It is under Universal Dough Recipe. You can make bread with it, you can make hamburger buns, hot dog buns, and your pizza dough. When I was in my early 30s, I worked at a pizza parlor, and we made so many different kinds of pizzas, sweet, savory, and I think my favorite pizza would be my ugly chicken pizza that I make, so I will have to show you guys that sometime. But this is how the pizza turned out. It was super delicious with a little bit of ranch. It was amazing, and we enjoyed that night. And for this night, I decided that I was going to make sourdough waffles. So I used Lisa's recipe on Farmer's Homeboon again. And she just used the sourdough discard for the batter, and I think a couple eggs. And I'm gonna plug in my waffle maker and get it all heated up, and then we're gonna start making these waffles. I apologize for all the background noise. This is why I do a voiceover, because I'd never be able to do it in person, so I'd have to do a voiceover, and then every time I grab my mic, my dogs are loud, drinking water. You can hear their toenails. Oh goodness, they're just little characters. So I'm greasing up this little waffle iron pan with some butter, and then we're gonna put a couple of spoonfuls of batter in there and get these cooking. We love doing breakfasts for dinner. Sometimes we do pancakes, and then other times we do fried potatoes, scrambled eggs, and toast. And then I believe that we also do breakfast casserole, so we've done that before. When we want something good to eat, but we don't really want to make a whole humongous meal. So a breakfast casserole is really helpful when you want something nutritious and you want to eat something savory and that is good for you. I usually put maple syrup on my waffles with a little bit of butter, but these turned out awesome. We each had 2 and they're super filling. What I've done before as well, I've put a whole bunch in the freezer, so I'd bulk up my recipe and then I would pop them in the freezer, and they are easy breakfast when you have to hurry up and run to work in the morning. I've done sweet waffles with a little bit of cinnamon and sugar, and I've also done savory waffles with a little bit of lunch meat and cheese in the middle, and those are really wonderful. I've actually been using a bunch of eggs, so I do not have any eggs in my refrigerator, and now we are eating off the water glass eggs that I have in my pantry. Thank goodness I did that, because the eggs are getting so crazy out there. Not just eggs are expensive, everything's expensive. You can't even leave the store without spending at least $100, and you got like 3 or 5 things. It's crazy. So on this day, I'm making my sourdough pop-tarts, and I'm using my peach jam from the peaches that I preserved this fall that I got from my Amish friends down the road. These turned out so amazing. So my recipe for this is going to be on my blog, thepeacockhomestead.com. And it makes around 8 Pop-Tarts. I'm using milk to seal the edges. So I put about 1.5 tablespoons of jam, because I made them really long rectangle shapes. And I'm using milk to seal the edges, and then I'm just gonna use a fork and crimp the edges. And I'm gonna bake these for about 30 minutes on 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You can use any kind of jam for this recipe. What I want to try is using my apple butter and then making a maple glaze on top. I bet you those would be so amazing and addictive. You could store these in the freezer and just pop them out when you're ready to eat them. So if you're going on a trip or something, you can have beautiful fresh sourdough pop-tarts for a snack. Or you can have them for breakfast or just any time of the day. They're really delicious. These also have the health benefits of sourdough. It's really good for gut health. Here I'm just crimping the edges so none of the filling spills out, but it usually does. But that's okay. And then I'm going to brush some milk over the top, and we're going to sprinkle these with sugar. You can also keep them plain as well. If you don't want to put any sugar on top, you can just brush it with an egg wash or milk. And of course I always have my slumbering helpers in the background. My little bee. And then I have these ugly Pop-Tarts that I'm crimping up. And it doesn't matter, it's all going to taste wonderful. On this night, I'm making some cottage pie, and it is also called shepherd's pie when you use lamb. But on this night, I'm using what I just popped out of my freezer. I got some hamburger here browning up, and I'm going to add an onion and some garlic, some fresh onions and garlic, and then I'm also going to add just a few spices, salt, pepper, and whatnot. I got some potatoes getting ready to go on the boil with skins on, and we are going to use some corn I popped out of my freezer. So I get this corn from a wonderful farmer. She lives in a couple towns over in a red barn, and I believe it's called the Thompsons. Well, she grows the most amazing corn, and she used to grow pumpkins and all kinds of squash. And I love the corn, and I usually try to swirl it up, but I didn't catch her on the right time because I've been working a lot. So I just had some that I had canned a few years ago, probably about a couple years ago, and I was lucky enough to get a can out of the freezer, and we're going to be using it in this recipe. So I'm frying up these onions, trying to get them translucent, and then I'm going to add a little garlic to the mix, and then we're going to assemble this wonderful cottage pie. So we are remodeling our kitchen, and you're probably going to hear some noise in the background. I apologize because my husband is working on a butcher block countertop, and we decided that we're going to shave off the two end corners because they're really pointy. So I apologize for the noise in the background. And then you can also hear my heater, which I have a furnace. I do have a wood stove, but it's not hooked up yet. My dad blessed me with the most beautiful wood stove, and I can't wait to get that hooked up because that's going to save so much money in the long run. And when the lights go out, which they did a couple days ago, so that was awful. Good thing the power only went out for a couple hours. I got to use some of my candles that I made in a couple of videos ago, and we bundled up and we're waiting for the power to come on. It was off for a couple hours, so it got kind of cold in here that night. We are going to assemble this with the hamburger on the bottom, and then I am going to put in my 1/2 quart of corn, and then we're gonna put the mashed potatoes on top, and I'm gonna cook this for about 40 to 50 minutes in a 350-degree oven. You can always use whatever you have in your fridge. If you have ground venison or moose or any wild game or goat or sheep, you can use anything in this recipe. You can use whatever vegetables that you have on hand. You can also add a can of cream soup, like cream jalapeno soup or cream of mushroom, and you can just make it your own and use what you got. You can also put in mixed veggies, as in like pumpkins or squash. You can just make it your own, and that's what's fun about these recipes. Everyone has their own variation and they all taste great. Now back to the wood stove. I am so excited to get our wood stove hooked up. It's going to save so much money with heating the house, and it's not like a furnace. It doesn't blow a little bit of hot air and then just go away, because we've been having to use a plug-in heater as well. So I have a plug-in heater right next to me, and I have that off because it's really loud. But I don't know if you can hear the furnace behind me, but that gets pretty loud too. The wood stove would save so much money. It would have a nice permeating heat, and it would be such a blessing when the lights go out, because last year the lights went out for 2 days and we were freezing our tokuses off. It was awful, and that's why I would like to get a gas stove as well, so we can just pop the stove on, turn it on, and then plug in the wood stove and have all that beautiful heat, so you wouldn't be freezing when emergencies pop up. But that's what that looks like. We're going to pop that in the oven for 40 to 45 minutes. I believe I cooked this for around 50 because this pan takes forever to cook. And here is our cottage pie, all baked. It looks super delicious. I put a little bit of salt and pepper on top just to taste, and we are gonna dish this up and have dinner. We've actually ate off this for 2 to 3 days, so we've had lots of leftovers because it's just Thomas and I, but I always seem to make too much. You guys ever have that problem where it ends up being enough for 8 people and it's just the 2 of you? But I wanted to talk about my kitchen real quick. We are remodeling that. We've got some of the cabinets painted, and then we're gonna do a butcher block countertop, and I've got a little piece that's up now, and then we still have to do the whole counter where my KitchenAid is, and my grain mill and my knife set and all that jazz. We have to get that all stained where the countertop's going to go over there. And then I'm going to have my new sink put in, and I'm going to be showing you that. So I've got a before and after, and tell me what you guys think. We've been waiting to do this for such a long time. It has been 6 or 7 years now we've been wanting to fix the kitchen. And so we finally got that opportunity to do it. So we are going to beautify it up. And it is my office. I'm in here so much cooking. I spend a lot of time in here studying, doing all my college work. I do all my YouTube editing, and I do my voiceovers in here, and all of my filming, unless I'm gardening, of course. So here is the big reveal, and tell me what you guys think. I am so happy with the results for that. He does such a wonderful job. So on this day, we are going to be making biscuits and gravy. And I have a biscuit recipe. It's a sourdough biscuit recipe, and you can find that on my blog. And these turned out so wonderful. I'm so excited. I usually make them and then eat what we have for dinner, leave a couple out for breakfast, and then I'll pop the rest in the freezer, and then we can use them for sides or just popping them out and having them for breakfast with a little bit of butter and jam on top. And they are super filling and wonderful, and they also have the benefits of sourdough. So I'm just going to roll these out. I like them pretty thick, and they'll rise really well. You don't need to do any proofing for a long time. You just mix it all up, roll it out, give it a little cut. If you don't have a cookie cutter, you can just use a bench scraper, which I'm using. I'm just going to make little triangles or squares, and I'm going to pop them in the oven for 15 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to get started on making the gravy. I have some salt and pepper here, a little bit of flour for the thickening agent, and then I have some broth-based seasoning, beef flavor, some parsley, garlic powder, onion powder. I have a pint of chicken bone broth and a can of mushroom soup. You can use any kind of cream of soup that you like. And I'm browning up a pound of hamburger that I snagged out of my freezer, and we're going to brown that up and use the same pan to put all of our soup and broth in it, just so we can get extra layers of flavor. And this is just a super simple comfort dinner that you can go to for a quick and easy dinner that'll fill bellies and be nutritious as well. It's been such a long time since I made this recipe, so I was really excited to see how I can just make it super delicious on this night. So I like adding all the different spices like garlic powder, onion powder. And we're gonna start off by adding some salt and pepper. I would just say a teaspoon to taste. And then we are gonna be adding some garlic powder and onion powder as well. You can just use any spices that you think taste good in it. I have some onion powder here. Those are just my go-tos. Sometimes I put greens in it. I'll put some nettle or some thyme, and you can also put some oregano in it. I love herbs de Provence for a spice, so I wasn't even thinking about putting that in, but that would have been really tasty in there as well. I'm gonna add some beef broth-based seasoning, so I needed to use this up. It's starting to get clumpy, so it'll add extra beef flavor to it, so that'll be tasty. And you have to excuse my washer and dryer. My kitchen is being remodeled, and eventually my stove will be in my kitchen. And I have to purchase another shelf for my pantry so I can put all of my herbs and spices, all of my medicinal herbs up there, and all my culinary spices. So I'll be super excited to show you guys that in the future. So I'm going to add a little bit of flour to thicken it up before I add the liquid so I don't get a bunch of clumps. That's one of the tricks that I learned a while ago. And you can actually do that by making a roux where you just slowly melt butter and then you add flour, and that makes a roux if you're going to make any cheese sauces or whatnot, or even a gravy like this. I'm adding my pint of chicken bone broth, and then I'm going to add my can of cream of mushroom soup. Then we're going to get that all cooking so it thickens right up, and we're going to pour that over the biscuits, and it's going to be so yummy. This is a super simple comfort recipe that I think you guys will love. I honestly can't even believe it's February. Time is it's going by so fast. Pretty soon it will be March, and it will be my birthday, and I will be 45 this year. Time goes by way too fast. It is crazy. But I'm not thinking about that right now. I don't want to be any older. I'm always going to be 20 in my head. The gravy is thickening up nice, and it needs to cook just for a little bit longer, and then it'll be ready to pour over those biscuits. We are ready to serve up our dinner. So they turned out so lovely. I love the way that there's layers in there, and they're nice and big, and the inside is just so fluffy, and look at all those layers. One of the things that I really want to make, I found in one of my cookbooks. It's an Irish cookbook, and it's called a vegetable cobbler, and it has biscuits on top, and then it just has a melody of vegetables in there with gravy. It looks so amazing. So hopefully I can make that next week for you guys, so that will be exciting. But that's what dinner looked like, and we really enjoyed these this night. on this day, we made some eggs for breakfast. I have 2 water glass there and 1 egg that was left in the refrigerator. I haven't been getting to my chickens on time because one of them is laying, and every time I go in the coop, it's busted open because it froze. That's how cold it is here. It's been super chilly. And that was no fun to have the lights go out for a couple hours, so I can't wait for my wood stove to get hooked up, and that will be a blessing. But yeah, we're just getting our water glass eggs. I have a half a 5-gallon bucket full, and hopefully I won't have to buy any, and they'll start laying soon, probably when the weather gets a little bit warmer. But this is only when I have a day off and I can be here in the morning and cook us some wonderful eggs and toast or pancakes. I'm so excited how my table turned out. That's exciting, and hopefully we'll get going on the wood stove here. And this is how breakfast turned out. It was super delicious. And I just wanted to thank you guys for watching. I hope you're having a blessed week, and let me know how you're doing on the pantry challenge. I'm going to be doing it for the rest of February. Many blessings, and I will see you on the next video, friends.